Imagine being dragged into a courtroom, facing the full wrath of the French Empire, not for murder, not for treason, but for writing a book of poetry. In 1857, a man stood before a judge, accused of outraging public morals and corrupting society. His crime! He had dared to find beauty in places where society only saw disgust. He wrote of corpses, of addiction, of forbidden desires, and of the suffocating weight of modern city life. He was fined, his work was censored, and he was branded a danger to the public. Yet today, he is worshipped as the father of modern poetry. His name was Charles Baudelaire. He was the ultimate rebel, the original dandy, and the first of the true cursed poets. But who was the man behind the scandal? What drives a brilliant mind to seek inspiration in the gutters of Paris, among the shadows of polite society? This is the story of a man who lived fast, died in agony, and changed literature forever. Charles Pierre Baudelaire was born in Paris in 1821, into a world that he would spend his entire life trying to escape. His father, a cultured man who taught him to appreciate art, died when Charles was only 6 years old. It was a shattering blow, but what came next was, in Charles's eyes, the ultimate betrayal. His mother married a strict military officer named Jacques Opic. To the young, intensely sensitive boy, the stepfather represented everything he hated: authority, rigid discipline, and the stifling, hypocritical values of the bourgeois era. The battle lines were drawn early. Charles was brilliant but rebellious. He was expelled from boarding school, much to his stepfather's fury. In a desperate attempt to straighten him out and break his artistic ambitions, his family forced him onto a ship bound for India. The journey was supposed to turn the wayward teenager into a respectable man of commerce. It failed completely. Charles hated the voyage, the confinement, and the crew, but the exotic sights, the intense tropical heat, and the vast, terrifying ocean left a permanent mark on his imagination. He jumped ship in Mauritius and made his way back to Paris, more determined than ever to live life entirely on his own terms. In 1842, upon turning 21, Baudelaire inherited a massive fortune from his late father. For a brief, glorious moment, he was a king. He transformed himself into the ultimate Parisian dandy. He dressed impeccably in tailor-made black suits, cultivated an air of absolute coldness and intellectual detachment, and surrounded himself with fine art, expensive antique books, and exotic luxuries. He moved into the historic Hotel Pimodan, where he fell in with the infamous Club des Hachishins. Alongside other literary giants of the age, Baudelaire experimented with hashish and opium, seeking to unlock new doors of perception and escape the crushing boredom of reality. It was during this period of lavish excess that he met Jeanne Duval, a Haitian-born actress who became his primary muse. She was his Black Venus, the inspiration for some of his most passionate, agonizing, and sensual poetry. Their relationship was volatile, toxic, and deeply intense, lasting for 2 decades through poverty, devastating disease, and mutual self-destruction. She was the anchor that held him to the physical world and the storm that constantly threatened to sink him. But the golden days could not last. Baudelaire spent money like a man trying to empty the ocean with a teacup. Within just 2 years, he had blown through half of his entire inheritance on clothes, paintings, and lavish dinners. Panicking, his family took extreme legal action. They placed his remaining wealth under the strict control of a financial guardian. For the rest of his life, Baudelaire would be doled out a meager, humiliating monthly allowance. The Prince of Paris was suddenly a beggar. This legal strangulation shattered him. He was forced to move from one squalid, freezing apartment to another, constantly dodging angry creditors, begging his mother for money in heartbreaking letters, and sinking deeper into severe depression. Yet it was precisely in this grinding poverty, trapped in the dirty, fog-choked streets of a rapidly industrializing Paris, that his greatest work began to take shape. Baudelaire was a slow, agonizing perfectionist. He weighed every single word, every syllable, every rhythm. It took him over a decade to compile the book that would secure his immortality, Les Fleurs du Mal, or The Flowers of Evil. Published in 1857, the book was a literary earthquake. Until then, poetry was largely supposed to be about nature, pure love, the divine, and classical heroism. Baudelaire violently tore down those rules. He wrote about the filthy reality of the modern city. He wrote about prostitutes, beggars, criminals, and the decaying bodies of animals left on the side of the road. He explored the suffocating, crushing feeling of boredom and existential dread, a terrible weight he famously called spleen. But he wasn't simply trying to be shocking for the sake of it. Baudelaire was trying to do something almost alchemical. He wanted to extract beauty from evil. He believed that the modern world was fallen, corrupt, and terrifying, but that a true artist could find a melancholic, transcendent beauty hidden within that very corruption. He looked at the grime of Paris and saw a dark, twisted poetry that no one else had ever noticed. The French authorities, however, were not interested in his artistic alchemy. Only weeks after The Flowers of Evil hit the bookstores, the government swooped in. Baudelaire and his publisher were dragged into court, charged with serious offenses against public morality and religion. The prosecutor relentlessly attacked the book as a collection of monstrous obscenities that threatened the fabric of society. The conservative court agreed. Baudelaire was heavily fined, and 6 of his poems were ordered to be completely removed from the book. These 6 poems were banned in France for nearly a century, not legally reinstated until 1949. The trial was a crushing, devastating blow. Baudelaire had sincerely hoped his masterpiece would bring him glory, critical respect, and much-needed financial stability. Instead, it brought him infamy, deeper debt, and the agonizing realization that his own country fundamentally misunderstood his genius. He became a social outcast, a scandalous figure pointed at in the streets. Alienated from his homeland and deeply depressed, Baudelaire found solace in a very strange place, across the Atlantic Ocean, in the obscure writings of a struggling, doomed American author named Edgar Allan Poe. When Baudelaire first read Poe, he was shocked to his core. He felt as though he had found his spiritual twin. He spent years meticulously translating Poe's complex works into French, single-handedly introducing the American master to the European continent. In many ways, they were identical souls. Both were obsessed with the macabre, both battled fierce addiction and crushing poverty, both were entirely misunderstood by their contemporaries, and both fiercely believed that art should exist for art's sake, completely independent from moral or educational instruction. But just like his American twin, Baudelaire's demons were rapidly catching up to him. His later years were a living nightmare. The syphilis he had contracted in his wild youth was now in its advanced stages, ravaging his body and his brilliant mind. His opium addiction, initially a dangerous tool for artistic exploration, had become a desperate, agonizing crutch just to dull his constant physical pain. In a tragic, desperate attempt to make enough money to pay off his endless debts, he moved to Belgium in 1864 to give a series of public lectures on art and literature. It was an absolute disaster. The Belgian audiences were utterly uninterested in the aging, notorious, sickly poet. They laughed at him or simply didn't show up. He hated the country, he hated the weather, and his health rapidly collapsed under the stress. In early 1866, while visiting a church in the city of Namur, Baudelaire collapsed to the stone floor. He had suffered a massive stroke. The aftermath was cruel beyond words. The man who had mastered the French language, the visionary poet who had bent words to his will to create the most agonizingly beautiful verses of the century, was left completely paralyzed on his right side and suffering from severe aphasia. He could no longer write. He could no longer speak except to scream a few meaningless, repetitive syllables when he was frustrated. He was brought back to Paris, where he lay in a medical clinic for over a year, a brilliant mind trapped inside a ruined, unresponsive body. On August 31st, 1867, Charles Baudelaire finally died. He was only 46 years old. He was buried in the Montparnasse Cemetery, placed in the exact same grave as the hated military stepfather he had despised his entire life. It was a final, bitter irony for the ultimate cursed poet. At the time of his lonely death, many critics completely dismissed him as a failed eccentric, a scandalous and deeply flawed footnote in French literature. But the dark seeds he had planted were already taking root in the underground. A new generation of brilliant young writers, visionaries like Arthur Rimbaud, Paul Verlaine, and Stéphane Mallarmé, read his banned, scandalous poems in secret and immediately saw the future. Baudelaire had single-handedly dragged poetry kicking and screaming into the modern age. He showed the world that art doesn't have to be pretty to be beautiful. He proved that the darkest, most broken parts of the human soul are just as worthy of intense exploration as the light. Today, his profound influence is everywhere. Every artist who embraces the dark, every writer who rebels against the polite, suffocating rules of society, every creative mind that finds striking poetry in the neon shadows of the modern city owes a massive debt to Charles Baudelaire. He looked directly into the terrifying abyss of modern life, and the abyss gave him a masterpiece. If you found yourself captivated by the dark, tragic brilliance of the original cursed poet, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We have many more journeys into the untold lives of history's most mysterious, rebellious, and fascinating figures waiting for you. Drop a comment below telling us which mysterious historical figure we should uncover next. Until next time, remember to look closer at the shadows. You never know what strange and beautiful things you might find hidden in the dark.